Hi, this is Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur. I am an international speaker, and most people know me because I am a coach. And I coached in professional baseball for 13 years, coaching in 3 World Series. I am with my guest today on the Winners Find a Way show with Keith Allen. Keith, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Trent. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm really grateful to be here with you.
Man, this is super exciting for me, Keith, to have somebody of your prowess also in an industry that is controversy, right? Man, Keith is running in the marijuana space, in the entertainment space. He's an LA guy. He is a front runner. He's also been big in the dental. We're gonna hear all sorts of stuff about Keith. So I'm super excited to learn more about you, of course, and talk a little bit about the show. So for those who are tuning in for the first time, before we meet Keith, the show is Winners Find a Way. If you have ever faced stiff adversity, felt like the losses are mounting, and you need to find a better way, well, you came to the right place. We talk about on our show and our podcast about getting things right, finding solutions, because winners do find a way. Whether you are already an entrepreneur, an athlete, just looking to be elite, a business person, this is the place for you. And we work hard to bring you some top 1% content. So Keith Allen, tell everyone first, Keith, where they can find you. If I want to find Keith Allen, where are you at? Social media, website, where can we get you?
You can get me on Instagram at Keith on Trucking. That's Keith on Trucking with the G at the end of it. I need a belt buckle that says that. One of these days, someone will get me one, or I'll buy it for myself. But Keith on Trucking on Instagram. And that's pretty much where I do most of my stuff. I mean, I'm not huge on social media, but when I do, I really do enjoy engaging with others there.
Love it. Keith on Trucking. By the way, I'm following Keith on Trucking. So if you're not, you're the one missing out, because you will hear all sorts of good stuff, and it is entertaining content, and it's informative, which is probably what I love about most. So let's get to know Keith a little bit. You are the Chief Executive Officer, Managing Director at Round Meadow Holdings. You're an experienced CEO, demonstrate a record of success working with consumer product goods, entertainment, management industries, very skilled in business planning, finance, marketing, startup ventures, strategic partnerships, and team building. Strong personal and networking skills. You've launched multiple brands in multiple industries, entertainment to cannabis, and all in international successes. Early beginnings as an author and television producer, created sports, comedy, lifestyle, music programming with major television networks. I love this one. This is my favorite. He spearheaded the launch of Gum Chucks. Tell us a little bit about that. That was a huge deal in the dental space, retail. I remember seeing you guys in Target, CVS, Walgreens. Talk to me about Gum Chucks and how you came with that.
Wow, Gum Chucks is a really interesting story. Around the time I was working in artist management, and some of the clients that I used to work with were Exhibit during, Pimp My Ride and some of those really great MTV shows, and the band Alien Ant Farm, and with a guy named John Boyle, who really gave me my shot at that in entertainment. He had a company, Boyle Artist Management, BAM Group, and I came to that from the action sports industry, and I was asked to go speak at a convention, a business convention in Henderson, Nevada, for entrepreneurs. And I had other interests because I wanted to meet some other people that I knew were going to be there. But I did like a 10-minute pitch talking about brand identity, emotional marketing, how people feel about products rather than just what they think, right?
Yes.
And for whatever reason, it's not like I went to school for that. I just resonated with it. And I did well in that space. And so people asked me to speak about it. Anyway, I go to this thing and I do my pitch. And afterwards, there's this guy we use the phrase trolling now, and it wasn't back then, but that's what he was doing. He was just kind of following me around. And, I was kind of like, what's up, man? Interesting guy, interesting character. And he goes, I was just trying to listen to the other advice you're giving people, and I thought I'd pick up on some of it, and I really enjoyed what you said. And I go, yeah, are you hungry? Let's go sit down. And we were at this place. There was just kind of this this restaurant bar area where everybody was networking in, and we sat down at this little table and started having some food. And he had an idea for a healthy fast food restaurant. And at the end of our talk, which was about, 45 minutes to an hour, he broke out these 2 sticks and started flossing his teeth with them. And I'm like, that's a little odd, but I'm
Yeah.
curious. Because he's flossing his teeth.
You're at the bar, doesn't everyone
Right,
like floss their
right.
teeth at the bar, right?
Looking around like, oh my God, are people watching us? And then I go, what is that? And he goes, I don't like to, I don't like to put my hands in my mouth, but I have to take really good care of my hygiene. He knew he had whatever reason he had to do it for. I invented this little thing because I don't like to put my hands in my mouth. And this is pre-flossing pics.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's really interesting. And I said, let me see those. And I had no shame. I took them from him and was looking at them, and, had some sanitizer to wash my hands with afterwards. But anyway, I was really impressed with the fact they look like miniature nunchucks, the Japanese fighting weapon,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But I said, they're for your gums. Call them gum chucks. And it was this laughing aha moment. It was one of those little things, those little moments in life. And this plays to a bigger philosophy of mine in life, which is these little moments that become big deals, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments, and I couldn't stop thinking about this, and that this experience I had with this guy. It was really kooky, and I think it was like $6,000 a head to get into this thing, and he kind of snuck into it and was living in his van in the parking lot. Like, this wasn't a guy that had a lot of money or business experience or anything. He just had this cool idea. Anyway, long story short, I call him up 2 weeks later and I go, dude, I can't stop thinking about this. And because I was in entertainment, I had some friends at DreamWorks and illustrators. And I came up with this whole idea for a cartoon series called Tinseltown. Takes place in the mouth of an international super spy traveling around the world, eating exotic foods, and characters like Count Placula, Ninja Vitus,
this has got you up at night. This has got you up at night, man.
Oh yeah. It kept me going, and I created. And so I go to these artists, and I had them create these cartoon characters that were just DreamWorks worthy. I mean, they were just incredible looking characters, and we created trading cards for them, and they had bios on the back that were all kind of puns and fun on the play of Tinseltown and Gumchucks. Anyway, long story short, I invested in the company, helped get it going. I raised some additional capital, and we created a company called OralWise. And I ran the company for 7 years, and we got it into 5,000 retail stores around the world. Wow. So it was just a really cool experience. And I'm so grateful for that one, because prior to that, I was in entertainment, and I'll be honest. I didn't have, well, at the time, in retrospect, I didn't have the business experience that I thought I had until you go to boot camp, right?
Right. Yeah. You went to entrepreneurship level 400, and you skipped the other 300 levels, right? You're like, I'm in, like, let's go. And you're like, oh, should I got these basic classes?
Oh yeah. No, I became very familiar with the phrase gaps in management. So, so needed to fill those pretty quickly. I went through a lot of really great life lessons in that company that really set me up for everything I did afterwards.
Well, and then let's go afterwards. You go to Icon Media, you do Wyndham Grand Hotels, you do Beachbody. Hey, listen, man, I'm a P90X guy, so I love Beachbody, right?
Yeah.
And then cannabis industry now, right? You saw opportunity there, utilize your experience from these communications, and you're filling a void in that space. And of course, now you've got the coolest thing ever, right? Which is the Budtender Awards, which is now to become something else, right? Are you changing that?
What, the Budtender Awards?
Yeah.
No, well, so the Budtender Awards was originally created because when we did all our research for cannabis brands, I noticed something that was really interesting to me, which is this void, if you will, in the space. And for those who don't know, it's an interesting play because the Budtenders really represent the front line.
Yep.
Marketing in cannabis is so highly regulated, and it's a death trap, because if you have a great Instagram account and all of a sudden you post something on there that Instagram doesn't like, you're shut down, you're done, you're over.
Whoa.
So it's very scary for people to promote or advertise their products on Instagram, Facebook, anything related to Google, all of these bigger media, social media companies, digital companies. They don't like it. Most of these are publicly traded companies. They deal with the federal issue, blah, blah, blah. So Budtender Awards was our attempt to say, hey, look, everybody wants to be in the good graces of the Budtenders. If you're a brand in the cannabis industry and you're trying to launch a brand, you want the advocacy of those Budtenders who interface with the consumers. Because that's what it is. You got brands, you got consumers, and the Budtenders are right in the middle. So we said, let's create, and I knew this from Gumchucks when we were trying to get our product into dental offices to get the recommendation of the dentist, because that gave us credibility, right? You couldn't just show up to a dental office and go, "Can I talk to the dentist?" I mean, these guys are working rounds like a waiter on a busy night in a restaurant. They don't have time to talk to you, let alone even acknowledge that you're there.
Yeah.
Same thing with dispensaries and bud tenders. If you walk into a dispensary and start talking about your product, you're going to get kicked out of there right away, right? I mean, it's even, and they got security with guns in most of these places, so it's a little more intimidating than the dental office. But I knew that it was a right thing to do to set up a platform where we had a neutralized place that everybody came to, and you had captured audience where the bud tenders could interface with the brands and ask questions, and it just blew up from there because we knew we had something special because the brands were interested and the bud tenders were interested and they were being taken seriously. So yeah, and the Budtender Awards, we added a whole party to it. Where the first year we did it, we had Cypress Hill perform. They got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and even those guys, I think, thought they were just getting paid for a corporate gig, and that's cool. But they ended up hanging out afterwards for well over an hour. Just they saw the emotion of the room, and it was really incredible experience that like I didn't even know it was going to be that great. So it was really another one of those moments. It became a big deal.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Wow. So now what's coming up? Now what's the newest, hottest event? Because you got something coming up. I mean, you've done the party with Mike Tyson. You've done some big stuff in this space. Yeah. And it's always kind of LA Vegas. It centers kind of around some entertainment, right? And talk to about what's next.
Well, so the Budtender Awards has really grown into itself. We realized very quickly the first year we did it with an expo. The expo is sort of an afterthought, but we have converted the expo to what we now call G4 Live. Okay. So G4 Live is sort of the rebirth of this idea, but we still have the Budtender Awards. It's just that now the Budtender Awards is the party we throw celebrating the Budtenders. And there's a full award show like the Academy Awards or the Grammys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a red carpet deal with we have Getty Images there, we have press, it's a whole thing that we do. And one thing I failed to mention that's really important it's important to me is the fact that we were the first ever cannabis related event that MGM Properties had ever allowed on any of their properties. And in Vegas on the strip there, they have 25 properties. So MGM is by far the big animal on that strip. But moreover, there would never been a cannabis event ever allowed on the strip because you're dealing with federal gaming issues. And not to digress, but the first year we had the Budtender Awards, the first day of the show, we were greeted by 18 suits that we knew were coming, but we didn't know how many there were going to be. And my partner and I had walked out front to greet them, to walk them into the show and show them what we were doing. We were very proud of the fact that we followed all the rules and regulations. Yeah. We had a great agreement with MGM. They trusted us, and, through basically had blind faith and saying, okay, we're going to do this. But we had demonstrated we were a professional organization focused on education information. We weren't a weed event. But we're greeted by those 18 suits, and we're greeted by Chuck Bowling, who's the president and COO of Mandalay Bay, Jim Murin, the president and CEO of MGM International, general counsel, their chief compliance officer. I mean, it was quite a deal. And then we had guys all showing up from the Wynn. Oh, yeah, they were all there. So all of that being said, we've now moved. We're at Resorts World now, which is the new monstrosity on the strip, right down the street from the Wynn. It's the hottest property on the strip as far as tech goes. It's the most tech advanced property I've ever seen. I mean, it's incredible. And so the G4 Live event that encompasses the Budtender Awards is happening now on May 11th through the 14th of 2022. And proud to announce on this show this is the first time I'm saying this out loud to anybody because we just signed our contract today, that we have Snoop Dogg performing. And we've got a couple other special guests that are going to be there with him as well. So we really blend this whole South by Southwest environment with cannabis. And we kind of feel like, someone said once we were the South by Southwest of cannabis. And I said, I love that because we do film screenings, documentary screenings. We do entertainment, music, expo, experiential aspects of the whole. Like if you go to the trade show, you can walk around and just step in a photo booth. There's free bars. We serve breakfast, lunch, snacks in between. It's all comped, and it's not box salads. It's a really experiential event that we throw, and we do it on the Las Vegas Strip, and we're the only ones allowed to do that in the cannabis space right now. So it's quite exciting for us. Incredible. So let's talk a little bit about. You're going to talk today about some challenges you face. We've seen all these accomplishments you've made, Keith, and it's staggering to me. It's awesome, right? And it's great to be a friend and hear all these things up close and personal. Likewise.
But when you tell tell me your why. Why do you come on the show, talk to an audience of entrepreneurs, of people who want to be elite, and talk about the challenges? Because the people I know, man, no one had this red carpet ride to the top. You know, like, man, there are some knockdowns, there are some punches in the mouth, there are some things that you got to go through. And you know, I always hear that, hey, you're going through hell, you got to go through it, right? Like, you don't go around it, you go through it. So tell me why you come on a show and talk about some of those things.
Well, as I heard you saying all that, and I know earlier we were talking about a quote, and I'm not trying to give my quote right now, but I'll say this. You know, I always said if I wrote a business book, the title of that book would be "Don't Look Down."
Mm.
And the reason why I say that is because it references something that everybody can relate to, is being in that moment where you're a little nervous or scared because you're climbing something, right? And
Yeah.
it just don't look down, just look up, just keep moving, right?
Stay
I
focused.
understand. You're right. I understand all too well the challenges of every entrepreneur, because I too myself have been through those challenges. I've had tremendous failures in the past, so much so that it literally has brought me to actual tears, like where it's just like, what am I doing with my life? Comparing myself to others, all the self-doubt, all the things that really make you feel like crap, right? And I just know that feeling intimately well. And what I like to say is that I'll come on a show like this and talk to people, because if you're someone who's going through those challenges, or even someone that's been through them that now relates to the other side of the story, the whole idea about the only way you lose is if you quit, and you got to keep going, and you got to take advice from people that, even if it's a mentor for a day, like if there's something you hear me say today, but you don't remember it in a year from now, that's okay. But if there's something I can say that's going to help someone understand that vision of what it takes to just keep going and don't look down, then that serves a purpose that is bigger than me. And I am grateful to have that opportunity, because people have done that for me in the past, and I know how much it meant to me.
Yes. I love that. I might reframe the show, mentor moment, right? Like, this is your moment. You got a mentor right here, and they're going to guide you through some stuff, man. And it's not going to be easy, right? But they're going to guide you through some challenges of it all. So let's talk a little bit about, for you, let's get into young Keith before it all starts, right? Let's talk about the most impactful, pivotal moment you had as a kid, where you knew you were destined for great things, where you said, hey, listen, something needs to change. This is what I'm headed for. This is what I'm going for. I think I've got this in me to do some shows in Hollywood, to build a multi-million-dollar brand, to be in 5,000 stores, you know, worldwide. I mean, all these things that you've done. At what point was that moment that you said, hey, listen, what was a pivotal moment?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question, because I hadn't thought of it before like that. And I go back to a moment when I was in 9th grade. No, actually, I'll go back even further. I remember being in 2nd grade, walking home from school, trying not to step in the cracks, you know, playing that game, right?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this limo drive by me and going, how can I get a limo? And I don't know what a 2nd grader was doing, thinking about getting a limo, but I didn't want to walk to school anymore. So that, reflecting on that experience, I have this adult version of the memory, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, when I look back on that memory, it was like, okay, I can go home and get some change, and I can buy some gum, and I can sell that, and I can more than what I paid for and buy some more. And I had this really early concept as a 2nd grader as to how to scale and grow a business, albeit very elementary. But I remember that so distinctly. Flash forward to 9th grade. I'm in woodshop class. I'm a freshman in high school, and you know, all the fears of being a freshman in high school and being
You're
a scrub.
Nobody amongst all the everybody's, right?
Yes, of course. And but I wanted to surf, and I knew that, like, I'd already learned how to surf a little bit before this, and you know, when I was younger. And I asked the woodshop teacher if I could make a surfboard as my final project, because it had a piece of wood running through the middle of it called a stringer. And he goes, yeah, sure, why not? So I made a surfboard for my final for that. And this is my first, you know, semester in high school. So I still had, you know, through the winter break and going into spring, and all this cool surfers in my school found out I made a board, and they're like, hey dude, cool. You make me a board, you know, what's up? And all of a sudden I became this cool kid who was making boards for everybody. By the time I graduated high school, I made 300 surfboards. I had a company I'd formed called Ripsticks. And I found something that I love to do. And I remember fighting with myself going, well, this is a side thing, you know, college. And you're programmed as a kid. I just came to terms with the fact that, you know what, I'm not cut from the same cloth as other people, and that's okay. And the
Yeah.
fabric in which I was stitched with was more of an entrepreneur who just had these big visionary ideas. Little did I know that you have to reverse engineer those and have some understanding of business and all these things you
Yeah.
learn in the
Yeah.
process. But it started for me very early, at a very young age, where I just knew that that's what gave me passion. That's what gave me excitement. And even now, as I talk to you about it, I'm excited, you know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I thought you were gonna say Rip Curl. It's like, I was like,
No,
what?
that was my first
Yeah,
big
wait,
success.
what? Yeah, I was 16. You know, and then
Right.
so then I love that story. I mean, you know, I'm kind of a little bit of the same way, but you know, I face this all the time. I've judged for the entrepreneur organization's Global Student
Yeah.
Entrepreneur Award, right? And there'll be students, and that mantra, like we're conditioned, right, through
Yeah.
schooling and everything else. It's like, well, I've got a, you know, $6 million company, but you know, I'm failing chemistry. My mom's pissed. I'm like, hey man, like, I don't know, buy her a house, bro. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
you're gonna be okay, right? And I just think, you know, it's
Yeah.
funny, man. I know my bankers never asked for my collegiate, you know,
Yeah.
anatomy and physiology lab grades, right? Like,
Right.
they never asked for it. So all right, let's pivot a little bit to modern day, right? I love the quote from Chris McChesney and Sean Covey. Sean's president up at Covey International, and they wrote a book called The Four Disciplines of Execution. 4DE goes out. You see it a lot. Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. Let's talk a bit about your background. What that allowed you to overcome and become one of those 1% in both life, business, entertainment. When you what was a time, Keith, where you were up against it, losing, down but not out, but you found a way to come back and win?
Boy, which one of those do I
Right.
share? My
I
God.
know you got some things because you've battled a few things in your life, right? You've battled some things in business. You've battled some addiction in your life, like many people have. Make your choice. I mean, but there's been some things for sure.
Well, okay, so I'll go into the addiction part because that really taps into, you know, I feel like with every success story in business, there's a really deep personal story behind it, right? I mean, from my experience, talking with other people, you know, I am sober 17 years as of last July.
Boy.
Yeah, and you know, it's a one day at a time deal for me.
Yep.
I have learned so much from my sobriety that I think it's interesting because when I talk about sobriety, I feel like it's something that anybody in the planet could really benefit from. But unfortunately, the way society has framed it is that if you're somebody who's sober, it's like, oh, you're sober. That there's some sort of weakness associated with that. And you know, I won't name drop, but some of the most successful people in the world that are publicly known and not known are some of my brothers, if you will, in the program. And it's like it's just a room full of winners, in my opinion. And it's all because we get these tools, how to be. You know, for me, and I'll move on to the business side of this in 1 second. But on the personal side, for me, sobriety isn't about drugs and alcohol. It's about real life skills, like being a better father, to my children, being a better husband to my wife, you know, being a better son to my parents, and being of service to others. And that really has given me so much spirit and so much life, for somebody that used to be self-seeking and selfish and just interested in what I could get for myself prior. And it's funny because when you make that pivot, it can't be for selfish reasons. It has to be for a whole nother set of things that, you know, we don't have to dive into on this talk. But it really, when you set yourself to be of service to others, you get so much more from it. And somehow, some way, your higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, its plan comes into play, and you get to be your best self. You get to live your best life, albeit with adversity and with challenges, no question, but you just have a different set of tools to deal with all that, you know, without getting, like, I deal in a very high stress business on a regular basis. I mean, the cannabis industry is like the Wild West. It really is the gold rush of 1849. And I like to think we're in the services end of things. We're the picks and the tools and the shovels, right? But there's so much shifting sand in that space that on one day, it can seem like the whole world is crashing down. And for whatever reason in my life, I've gained the tools to just not go to reaction. In fact, a big philosophy of mine is to not be reactive, to rather be responsive. Take the time to be thoughtful of a situation and analyze it a little bit more than maybe the average person would. But those are the tools that I have that have given me the ability to come back from adversity in any situation, whether it be personal or professional. And I'm grateful for those tools.
I love it. We've talked a little bit about this, but like, I really like this. And, you know, when I think about, you know, you described it, I just feel like, you know, a person who goes out and I'm armed with the tool belt, right? Like I'm ready to go to work and like, hey, we need to measure this, like, boom, tape measure, boom. Hey, we need to hammer that key, boom, hammer, you know, like we go to the tool belt. But like, how many of us as adults get into this age of addiction to something? I don't care if it's food, work, sex, drugs, alcohol. I mean, pick your poison, right? And and we look down and we go, hey, Keith, man, you got any tools? Because I ain't got no tools, bro. like I'm sitting here and I don't have anything, right? And so, man, and if I leave you and you're my only like lifeline, and like it turns out you can't be with me 24/7, like all of a sudden I'm without tools, right? So how come we're not developing that? How come we're not bringing that along to kids and schools and education?
Well, look, I'll make a reference to something you and I personally experienced. We went skeet shooting, and I had so much going on in my life on that day prior, and I gotten some messages that morning. It really threw me off. So this is a real example. Not everything's perfect because you were there.
Yeah.
And I had I first round, I was right there with our friend Jeff, and 5 for 5. You came out, hit 7. I'm like, okay, we're chasing Trent. You know, there's this whole thing. But then all of a sudden I got in my head. And I had this experience where it was like, man, I was just down and out, and all of a sudden my head started talking to me negatively. And what happened? I started missing every shot. I got 5th place out of 5 guys. I crashed that day. Then we go on to do archery, and I'm not having it. And I'm just sucking at everything that day. And that's not the nature of who I am, because I'm very competitive and I pride myself in being good at things, right? That was a very humbling experience. But here's what happened that day, and this is why I bring it up. You gave me a look and a pat on the back, and you're like, come on, bro, you got this. You said something to me to that effect, or you said something about one of the other guys. If you beat that guy, then I'm going to kick your ass. Like, if that guy beats you, I'm going to kick your ass. And there was something about the camaraderie between us. And what I'm tapping into is this idea that no matter what you're going through, it's okay to have a bad day. But more importantly, who are you talking to about it? Because if you don't have other men that you can talk to, or women, if you're a woman, like people that you feel comfortable talking with, whether it is a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a resource to go to and just share and just dump it, what do you got? And you know, I think that that's a part of why we're not teaching that to people, because I feel like there's this attitude amongst men where, you know, men don't share their feelings, or men don't talk about these sorts of things. Toughen up, get up, you know, lick your wounds, get up, you know, fall off the horse. What do? You get back on it. Those all things apply. But the thing that's missing from that is that it's a human experience. You got to have people you can talk to about what's really going on with you, because there is scientific proof that when you talk about something negative, it diffuses it. However, when you talk about something positive, it influences it. And that's an important tool to have with people.
I love that. Love that. So let's talk for a moment about how do you get out when you were younger and you're still developing those tools, right? We're 17 years ago now. Like, you decide, like, and I know this isn't for most addicts, right? We're just not like, hey, I'm done with that now. Like, hey, that was then, this is now. Like, it's not exactly how it goes, right?
Yeah.
What are the tools you start building? Like, what gets you going in momentum to turn it around? What starts drawing where you can take one step more in front of each other, where you can start, hey, I'm walking. I'm not crawling anymore. I'm walking. Hey, I might little light jog, right? And I might get going and build my days up. And hey, man, I've got a good friend going through this right now, man. Hit his 3-year coin the other day. Like, he's moving, and he's moving in all the direction, all the right way, but he's got to do the deal every day. It's a day by day. But what gets you going from the start to move you?
Well, there's a saying, which is that you need to hit a bottom, and everybody's bottom is different. And there's a catchy little phrase that every bottom has a trap door. So you need to be careful about what your bottom is, because there is a trap door no matter how deep your bottom is. Okay. And if that one of these days, you know, for most people, if you hit that trap door and it's the last stop, it's usually the end of your life. So it's jails, institutions, and death is a phrase that we use quite frequently in the program, and it is very true. I think that my bottom for me was so impactful and so powerful and so painful that it becomes a point where you have to surrender. And what I love about surrender is that surrender transcends itself through almost everything you do from that moment forward, even when things are just amazing. You have to identify what surrender means, because surrender is also accompanied with being in a frame of mind where you're in acceptance. And, acceptance is a big part of my life. If there's any person, place, thing, or situation that, I have a problem with, I have to accept it for exactly what it is. And in fact, there's a whole paragraph on acceptance in the big book. So it's like, but that phrase acceptance is one of the things that really impacted me personally, because I had a hard time accepting things. Things weren't fair. Things weren't, I wasn't getting mine. I compare myself to other people on a regular basis and what they had, and people that that I thought had the perfect life. And it's like, why not me? That mentality is what slows you down. But it's interesting because as soon as you remove that, and you start to see just some semblance of like, oh, that feels different, you become gravitated towards wanting more of that. And the more of that you get, the more it becomes conditioned in who you are. It's the 10,000 hour rule, right? You just keep doing it, you get better at it, right?
That's right.
And it's like going to the gym. You work out, you train, you get rest, you have a good nutrition plan. You'll grow in muscle and you'll grow strength. It's the same thing for mental strength. It's like you have to really nurture that and repeat it and keep doing it. And this is why, for me in my life, what gets me going is waking up every morning with a gratitude list. I get up every morning. I go downstairs I have a gym in my house. I roll, I stretch, I listen to master class on a regular basis, like Chris Voss, negotiating skills. I love that guy. Bob Iger, like listening to really smart minds make things sound simple. And I just drink it up like a dry sponge in the morning. And that sets my day right. And it allows me to be in the frame of mind where I can be in acceptance, I can surrender, and I can be a part of a solution rather than contributing to a problem. And it's really that simple. And these aren't just motivating words. I'm saying this is the way I live my life. And I've been doing that for a long time. And it's amazing how you see everything shift. And this is another thing I believe in too, is that no big change happens overnight. It happens with small shifts. So don't put all the pressure to make some big change overnight. Just make a small shift every day towards that big goal. And before you know it, time passes any way you feel it. And you find yourself in this moment where you're like, hey, I knocked that down. Now what's next?
That's good. I love that. A couple of highlights right there, right? Which is, man, from the physical conditioning, which I know well, and the mental conditioning, which is we've always talked about how tough that is, and I think those are, by the way, they cross a little bit, the physical and the mental, right? Because you gain in both things by pushing yourself physically, you get mentally stronger. But one of the things I think that is also moral strength, right? Like the things you're doing right and you're doing well, and morally the gratitude and like, hey, I'm choosing the right things. I'm choosing to treat people well. I'm choosing to treat myself well. And making ethical and high quality decisions, and whether you're involved with higher power, like following those guidelines, and man, all of a sudden it's like you said, it's day by day. It starts picking up momentum. It's the little things, and I love Gates's quote that says, "Hey, people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they highly underestimate what they can do in 10." Because you start building up the days. We have a saying a lot, this day for that day, right? And I hear that a lot in sports, but it's this day for that day. And so, a lot of people say, hey, what is that day? Well, for me, like that day was the college scholarship, right? And I'm like, man, so over the next 4 years of high school, well, you start talking about 1,500 days, right? Like there's going to be a lot of this days to get to that day when that coach says, hey, I want you on my team. We're willing to offer you a scholarship. We'll help pay for education. There's that, and like that day. And then it's a reset. Now I got to get a pro contract for that day. So what do I got to do? Hey, next 3 years is lifting, training, conditioning, mentally, physically, getting inside, meeting wise people that are going to mentor me and help me get me where I want to go. And it's, hey, there's a lot of this day for that day, right? So let's pivot a little bit to you developing the entertainment. You're an Icon Media. You got all these things going. What do you think? You fall in that 1% category, earnings, all those things. LA, you've made it in a lot of ways, and everyone can, put on what they mean, what made it means. But what do you think is the superpower of Keith Allen that separates you from others and catapults you into that category?
Well, that's a tough question to answer because I don't consider myself to be really different than anyone else. I just think I have a set of skills that I've acquired over a number of years that have made me a little bit more present in the moment and able to identify opportunity in a different sort of way than I used to when I was having a different result. Right. So rather than comparing myself to someone else necessarily, I look at comparing myself to who I was in a different time when I was not getting what I wanted from my work effort. I think that surrounding myself with really good people who are smarter than I am in any one subject or area of my business that I'm not as skilled at. I consider myself to be a conservative. I'm financially intelligent, but I have people that I work with that are MBAs that are just so much smarter than me in that area. And I take their advice and their guidance and I don't tell them what to do. I'm a contemporary to people that I work with. So I think my superpower, to answer your question more directly, is that I am very aware of my surroundings in any one given moment and how to work best with those environments rather than try and control them.
I like that. I think
Yeah.
that is an absolute superpower. I find this to be one of the most challenging things in the world, having 5 children, 3 companies, everything, to be present in the moment. And my children frequently give me that great feedback of, I asked you a question 2 minutes ago, right? And I'm like, no, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm in the middle of this. Like, you cannot ask me that question right there, right? And so they think like I'm hanging on every one of their words, and they know that I'm not, but they remind me that I'm not present even though I'm there. And so it's a nice little kick in my teeth, I'll tell you, to be honest, because it hurts my heart a little bit when they do it. And listen, they're justified, right? They're not wrong. And so, but it kicks me in the teeth a little bit, and it makes me want to be better. And so I think, man, when you talk about that, and of course I've spent time with you, so I know that exactly what that present feels like, and it's an honor. You like you do feel honored when you're around you, Keith, because you feel like you're important. You feel like you matter, and the old saying, right, is people don't care, how much, they will not remember like what you knew and all that, but they will remember how you made them feel, man. And so when you're around you and you feel important, you feel you present and part of the engagement and in the conversation, you feel good. Like you feel like you want to be there. You feel strong, you feel appreciated, you feel valued, respected. I mean, all those things that I think everybody's going for where they're at. And part of the reason I think we're missing that and helping people feel that way is because we're caught up in our own stuff, right? We're caught up in not the present, but the depression of the past or the anxiety of the future, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say the 2 things that will rock my world is fear. And there's 2 kinds of fears, in my opinion. There's fear of not getting what you want and fear of losing what you got. And in business, it's all too common for those to collide like a tornado, and you got both. Yeah. And when that happens, you're tested. And when you're tested in those moments, man, you can theorize all you want about the philosophies of life, but man, when it really hits the fan like that, it's quite an experience to be able to counter it with practical application of these ideas. And the first one that's easiest for me to get to is to take contrary action, just to do the opposite of what I'm feeling and thinking, even if it's a small step towards doing it, because it always works out in the end. There's a scientific proof about this idea about mirroring neurons, which is like this whole idea that scientifically, if someone flips you off on the freeway, what are you going to do?
Flip them back off, right?
Right, exactly.
We do, yeah.
Right. So it's interesting because when I'm around other people that seem like they're stressed or there's a situation going on, I like to use, and this isn't my language. This is this guy, Chris Voss, who I just love listening to this guy talk. He's one of the FBI lead negotiators in the world and talks about how to negotiate in business using these tactics he used for terrorists, right? But he's like, it's like, use the late night FM DJ voice. And when you use that late night FM DJ voice, other people start to calm down and you see their voice start to calm down as well, right? And it's like these mirroring neurons. So if you're aware of that in any given moment, you could almost talk yourself out of the tree by using the late night FM DJ voice. Yeah. It's just these little crazy tools. And if they connect with you, great. If they don't, find some that do.
Yeah. I can identify with that. I can remember coming out of baseball games, and I always found when I was in whatever town, ball games, you get amped up. You get all these things going, and then you got to go home and go sleep, right? You're all amped up to this. Right. And so people end up choosing downers, right? Alcohol, things that they can bring them down because you're too high and you got to get down. And so, I'm an exercise guy. I'm worked up and I'm a health nut, right? So I just want to, by the end of the time, I'm cashed, right? But I also got to go home with the right mentality. So I would listen to the jazz station, and the guy would get on, KYOT, Coyote, It's just like, and it was like, man, and I'm listening to smooth jazz, and my mind is going to a state of relaxation. It's like, I don't need this amp. I'm going to just settle down. And I just thought like how valuable that was to me at that time, because going back home where it's not a highly competitive, got to win environment. Let's do this, go to the mattresses to win, to win. And so it was critical. And so, again, another tool that we're trying to put into our belt, right? Let's flip over to looking back. I mean, I see this addiction as, somewhat of a massive value in your production today because of how you've learned to navigate the present, right? But knowing what you know now, what would you have done something differently?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, there's tons of things you could look back on in life, I think, and say, hey, how would I have done that differently? And,
for sure.
But I don't. What I don't do is I don't romanticize those thoughts, because I am fully aware of the fact that there's a healthy dose of respect for recognizing what you would do differently versus what you did. So when situations come up again that are maybe similar or remind you of that scenario, you have the ability to recall, as that old saying goes, those who don't remember the past or present are damned to repeat it in the future, or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
And so if the question is, what would I have done differently with respect to business, I think that it's important to point out that the younger version of myself was, I wouldn't say arrogant to the point where you wouldn't like me or someone wouldn't want to be around me. I mean, I get that in this world, not everyone's for everyone, but more importantly, I think that I just thought I knew more than I did, and I didn't want to be told different. And that is one of the biggest handicaps of any entrepreneur I've ever come across in any situation, is when their ego gets involved because they don't want something taken. Back to the fear, losing what you got, not getting what you want. And that, to me, really, those fears really drive ego. And I just think that if I could go back into the past and taken my time to just look at the situation and be more responsive rather than reactive, I probably would have had a better outcome, starting with the fact that I could have found people who knew more than me in that one area and gotten and seeked advice from them.
If you looked at that, I mean, could I categorize that as pride? Like knowing, like, I think I know, like, I'm a pretty smart dude and I work hard, so I think I know. Can I categorize that? Is that fair?
Yeah.
So if I was to sit back and look at the biggest challenges I've seen in a lot of people's fall, like 9 out of 10, pride lead the way, right? Like it is about, man, you know what? I know, just ask me. Like, I am one smart SOB. Like, really? Like, there's some blinders on, and we blow in with some, some falsehoods that we're telling ourselves. And I think the blinders are pride and arrogance, right? To get in our way and say, hey, I can't see this other stuff because I can't take my pride blinder off, because I'm guilty of this on numerous occasions, right? Like it's countless, right, Keith? So if you had, let me pivot to this. If you had one value, belief, action that you took when you were down and out that turned things around for you, if you had someone right now on this line right now that was just, hey, needed a lifeline, needed something, what would one value, belief, or action that you took be a game changer for someone?
Boy, I don't mean to sound simplistic, but just be open-minded to the fact that your pride is your passion and your drive, but it shouldn't clothe you. Like, to be clothed with your own pride and ego and hey, look at me, and it's like it's misguided. Uh, be open-minded. Be open-minded to taking other people's advice, even if it's not directly advice. You know, here's an interesting concept. Is that if you go into a conversation and you are talking to somebody and you want to know more about what it is that you might be able to learn from this person without saying, hey, tell me more about what I can learn from you, just repeat the last 3 or 4 words of when they say something. It's interesting. It's called mirroring. And mirroring is a really great tool. It's like somebody could be in a conversation and they're like, yeah, I went to this yoga retreat and, we ate all kinds of really good food. And then they go, yeah, they had melon, they had, low carb, da, 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 da. I'm making a dumb example, but the reality is if you just say the last 3 or 4 words of somebody's sentence to the back to them, it's called mirroring, and they tell you more.
Yeah.
It's like, these are really great tools to utilize for being in an environment where you don't necessarily know how or what to do to know more from this person, because our instincts are to tell them how great we are. Right. And I find myself in those conversations all the time with people where it's like, it's an ego thing amongst men, what I've done, and it's like, listen, I've done it too. So it's not like I'm judging. I'm just saying that it's like, I'm more now interested in my life about learning more about other people than I am sharing with like how great I think I am. That old phrase, don't you know who I think I am? Right. It's like, it's just a whole another version of it that I find more appealing, which is learning as much as I can from other people by, mirroring or just having a great conversation like what we're having now. Like I know this is an interview with me, but I've learned so much cool stuff about you that it was really easy for me to say, yeah, man, let's do this because I want to talk to you more.
Well, and I love that. We use that all the time. Like, hey, Keith, tell me more about how I would mirror actions with my wife to engage higher conversation. Right? Like, tell me more about how I can be more present in my day-to-day activity. Tell me more. And listen, you got those answers, right? And you're deep into that. And it instantly sets us off. And then it's the next thing. Oh, tell me more how I would carry my body language like that. Tell me more how I should, be present in that. Tell me more about eye contact and how I should, and you've got those answers. And man, I love that question. I love that mirror of repeat the last 3 things. I think that's so simplistic. And I'm going to add that to our arsenal in the, hey, tell me more and pick those last 3 things that you just heard, because they want to tell you more about, and there's a deeper dive there if you're willing to go and listen.
Yeah. Well, and remember earlier in our conversation, I was saying to you, there's scientific fact that when you, so like mirroring and labeling, right? And this is, by the way, this is all this Chris Voss stuff that I love. And I don't know why I tapped into Chris today, but it's this great stuff that applies to our conversation. So labeling is like, if someone says to you, if they're expressing themselves and they're really frustrated about something, it sounds like you're really passionate about this. It sounds like, feels like, looks like. And it's proven that if you are to call someone out on something that they're experiencing that's negative, that it diffuses their negative feelings when you say that to them, because they talk about it and it diffuses it. However, it is scientifically proven that if it sounds like you're really passionate about helping people, well, yeah, I love helping people. It makes me feel really good inside. All of a sudden, it just increases the positivity. So mirroring and labeling is a really great tool. You can go and have a conversation with somebody and mirror and label them the whole time. They'll know nothing about you, but you can tell them everything about them because you just mirrored and labeled them the whole time. And now you became the most interesting person in the world. These are great tools for communications, but I find these tools to be helpful to me because there's always some nugget that I get from having a conversation with somebody that I want to know more about, that inspires me or reinforces something about what I'm doing that makes me better at it. So it's a little self-serving in some ways, but it also, I think, creates the platform for a great relationship.
Awesome. Let's go to this question. You've had a lot of success. You've won a lot, right? What's the best battle that you've conquered in your lifetime?
Well, it'd have to be addiction. And it's not over. It's a daily reprieve. I mean, it's a daily deal for me. I don't crave drugs and alcohol anymore in my life, but like I said earlier, it's not about that. That's the biggest battle I've overcome personally. Professionally, um, I had a gum chucks experience that when I built gum chucks up to a point where we had brought in, investment capital. I had brought on some team members who knew more than me on the finance side of things. Somebody who was a professional CFO. Actually, the guy was a turnaround. He would go into companies and he was a CEO who would turn companies around. And he had a CFO background. This is usually financially driven CEOs, right? And he and I got into a little bit of a tiff on some stuff. It just, our visions weren't aligned, and he didn't like the fact that I was so visionary. And anyway, long story short, there was a day that came in August of 2012 where I was called up by the board of directors, and they called a quorum, and I was fired from the company that I had started. And for no good reason, by the way. It was just really a takeover, someone trying to take over the company. And I really didn't have a word to say about this, but I was blindsided. Immediately after that call, I call up my attorney and I go rush over to his office, and he takes a look at the bylaws and he says, well, here's an option. And it says in there that any one shareholder can call a special meeting of the shareholders if they have 51% or more of the shareholders on board. So at that time, I didn't have 51%. But I just received a letter from our manufacturer saying, hey, I just got this news that you were fired. I don't know these other guys. I'm not going to work with them. I'm not shipping them product. And we were a month out from shipping our first product to a massive amount of orders that we'd received. And I took that letter and sent it to all the shareholders. And I got a proxy vote for 78% of all the shareholders to be able to call a special meeting of the shareholders. And I fired the board of directors and reinstated myself as president and chairman of the company and took it to great success. So that was a pretty gnarly battle to go through.
Yeah, yeah. The other way, that's reading the fine print, bro. I mean, like, there's so many battles to fight, and man, that's a heck of a conquer. I will also tell you, on your first one, I know you're conquering that every day. You said it right from the beginning. Right? You say, hey, I battle this every day. I wake up, I start again. I have you currently at 6,205 days conquered. It's pretty awesome, right? At 6,205. Like, I don't know if you know or not, but I conquered this yesterday. Like, and that's 6. So take that. Yeah, mic drop.
I love that.
Right?
Thank you for filling that out for me, Trent.
Yeah. So you got that. You can just, mic drop that on me. Like, you just tell them, hey, that's courtesy of Trent Clark right there. I just got to give you a 6,207 mic drop tomorrow. All right. So
that's right.
I want to finish with a couple things, which is one.
Sure.
You because of this presence, you got a good read on people. You've worked with all these different industries from all different walks of life, right? And you got clients that you've served from, everything, right? The housewife to the 10, 12-year-old who, like, oh my gosh, you got to take care of your teeth, kid. Like, to anyone, high, low, old, all these things as we go across the spectrum of humanity.
Right.
So I'll ask you, because you're so present and you're aware, and I find that most people aren't self-aware even. And so when they look inside that mirror and you're looking at them, what do you think most people are missing about themselves in the mirror that they just don't see?
Wow, that's a deep question. I believe that most people are, well, first of all, that's saying we're all going through something, but that's something underlined usually gives people self-doubt.
Yeah.
It gives them mental challenges about who they are and what their place in the world is. More specifically, if they're married, maybe their place with their spouse, even when things are going really well, temptation, their kids, are they spending enough time with their kids? Are they qualifying that they need their own time for themselves because they earned it? Like, all of these self-doubts that people have on a daily basis, I think suffocates the possibility for self-promotion, and it really is a balance between being too prideful and being an ego, and being in self-doubt with self-talk that is diminishing. And I think that that's what most people are going through in this world, especially coming out of COVID and everything that's associated with being isolated and being in isolation. That isolation creates a lot of self-doubt in and of itself, but let alone when you're by yourself or just with the people you're closest with in whatever scenario. That's the challenge, is getting through your own self-talk. That's what I believe.
I find it to be so common, and by the way, guilty, right? Like I've been there many a moon, right? Deep in the old Saturday Night Live Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy, right? Like I'm back with Deep Thoughts by Trent Handy, like I'm going like, and they're not encouraging, they're not positive, they're not self-promoting, they're not those things that you just talked about in any way. So before we go to the last, I want to first thank you so much, Keith, for joining us. It's so awesome to have you on, man. I learned a lot. This is great. All sorts of different things. Listen, our pride, being open to, just an open mind, keeping that space, facing our fear and being aware of what that fear is in us, mirroring and talking about like how important and valuable that is in our relationships, communication, how we do that, being present, of course, labeling, also a key item that I thought was really good, and your daily conquer. Like I love that, the things you've conquered, and then always waking up in another day of conquer. I love that. For those, before I go here, tell them where they can find you again, Keith.
Keith on Trucking at Instagram.
Yeah, you're also on leadership. You're also on LinkedIn.
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep. And
got a picture of me in a suit.
What's the main website? You in a suit. What's the main website?
Well, I would say I would love to direct people to go check out budtenderawards.com or g4live.com. And it's literally the letter G, the number 4 live.com. And you get to see a little bit more about our event. We have some other things around Meadow Holdings that we do. We have a whole data play that we aggregate all the data from the industry. We have a merchant services platform called Canopade, where we serve the dispensaries that want to use credit card for selling cannabis. We have some really cool services that Around Meadow Holdings offers, and I'm so incredibly grateful to be a part of such an amazing team. We have a World Series team driving this business, and I'm grateful to be just a part of that environment.
That's awesome. And listen, G4, you heard it here first. Snoop Dogg will be at G4 in May. So, most of us are going to try to get there too, because, hey, if Snoop's going, why wouldn't I, right? And so G4 Live, you better get there in May. Give those dates again.
May 11th through the 14th. The evening of the 11th, we'll have a kickoff party with a special DJ. 12th, 13th, 14th of the expo, we have the buyer's ball. We do all kinds of really cool things around the expo. But then on Saturday night, the 14th of May, we'll be doing the Budtender Awards at a club. I believe we're doing it at IU, which is one of the coolest clubs I've ever been to, at Resorts World in Las Vegas. And we will have Snoop there spinning, DJing, and performing, doing a 75-minute set. And there's going to be a lot of really special guests there as well. I can't name the other people that are coming. Oh, we also do have one of our keynote speakers for that event is President Vicente Fox, former president of Mexico.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Really, really interesting guy to listen to. Harvard educated, ran Coca-Cola Mexico before he became the president of Mexico. This guy's just an amazing person to listen to. Really impressive. So just really great guests, really great entertainment, and you will not be unhappy if you come to this event.
Perfect. Your quote, when things are down, what's your quote do you face? What do you go to?
Contrary action. Works every time.
Action.
Yep. Take contrary action. If you ever feel like you don't want to do something, but you need to do it, just do it. And the funny thing is it's literally that analogy. The hardest part about getting to the gym is getting in your car or whatever, that saying. Yeah. It's like, as soon as you take contrary action, that is the strongest, most beneficial, most surprising tool you can have in your toolbox that is buildable, it is scalable, and it will help you in a tremendous amount of ways, well beyond that one moment you're in when you take contrary action.
Love it. For all of you, thank you for being on the Winners Find a Way show, Keith Allen, my good buddy. And I'm telling you, like, great props on all that we've learned today. Please join us always YouTube Live. You can find us on the Leadershipity channel on the YouTube, Leadershipity, Instagram, Twitter. You can find me at Trent M. Clark, of course. My handles are all over there. And leadershipity.com. Look for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity. DM or email so you can learn 5-star this episode. We always work hard to produce some 1-star, 1% leaders. So 5-star content all the time. So join us always on the Winners Find a Way show. And special thanks to Keith Allen for joining us today. Keith, you are the man.
Right back at you, Trent. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. Appreciate it.